Welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. This week, another Venice episode, When the Order Arrives in Venice. We need an idea of why the Order of Hermes has developed so oddly in Venice. It's all very well to say that it's because there's a powerful fairy there pulling the strings, creating a Reggio. But why would you go into his realm in the first place? Why did several separate sets of magi set up little chapter houses here? So they were forced to compromise and develop the strange culture of tolerance they now practice. I think we may have found the point when this occurs, and it's due to the Dogeressa 2 on from Teodora Selvo that we covered in the last Venice episode. Fashion swings away from the opulence of Teodora's reign, and under the second Dogeressa after her, this peaks when the crusading movement first flourishes. The Dogeressa, Felicia Michiello, was a local. She was tied to a doge of a house of the second rank, and she called off the games of status, which were so popular both before and after her Degado, or her husband's Degado. A chronicler of the time notes, and this is a quote, "Having made it their aim to be peaceful and religious, they kept an equality with one another, that equality might induce stability and concord. They made their dress a matter of conscience, comfortable to the seriousness of their demeanour, concealing the figure." End quote. Felicia was deeply religious, and the crusading movement lurched forward in Venice under her personal patronage. The Venetians had rebalanced their loyalty in favour of the German emperors, and were in the main content to just ignore the Crusades as a Greek problem. The Dogeressa is the person who spearheaded efforts on behalf of Christian refugees who'd come to Venice, and she persuaded her husband to call a meeting of the heads of the great families to discuss supporting the crusade. To raise funds for the crusade, she sold her jewellery and her dresses, a fashion commended to the other great ladies of the city, and she cut back on her hospitality. This is, I'd argue, when the order comes to the city. Generally, when the royalties sell off their jewels, it sells them to the next level of nobility. But she has made it a fashion for people to sell off their jewels, so she can't just sell them one step down the pyramid. They're clearly being sold to agents of powers outside the city. In the real world, it probably cratered the value of jewels, because the kings in the West were trying to do similar things to finance their crusading armies. In Ars Magica, it explains why you suddenly get a group of merchants setting up in what's now the Merceria off St. Mark's Square. They buy a heap of gemstones and fine fabrics during what's clearly a fire sale. The rules preventing the magical creation of wealth have not yet become widespread. Agents from rival covenants throughout Italy send in someone to snap up the bargains. So too do the Tremare. Presumably the Tremare have been here already, because the Venetians are the secular rulers of Dalmatia, which is in the edge of the Tremare sphere of influence, the edge of the Transylvanian tribunal. The Jabotins may not have already had agents in Venice. The Venetian luxuries that they so enjoy were cheaper in Constantinople. Regardless, they do know a bargain when they see one, and aside from the gemstones, they want Venetian art and Egyptian artefacts, which are only available here. In 1099, a fleet of 200 ships left the Lido, carrying the Second Crusade east. The Venetian section was commanded by a bishop who took the teenage son of the Doge and the Dogeressa in his retinue. The Dogeressa then concentrated on establishing hospitals and pilgrimage way stops, and the Crusaders returned victorious with, among other treasures, the body of St. Nicholas of Maria. In the next Venice episode, which is going to be in about 3 weeks, I'm going to talk about what the Dogeressa did while the men were off participating in the following crusade, the Third Crusade. This ties back into the idea of a secret society of female alchemists active in the city. But that's the brief one for now. Your saga may vary.